Hello, and welcome to this edition of The List on UWW-TV. I'm Mason Miller, alongside Nadiri Morgan-Thompson. For the next few minutes, we'll present our top 5 sports stories of the week and discuss why they made the top 5. Did your top 5 make our list? Let's find out. At number 5 on our list, the UW Whitewater football regular season has officially ended. The Warhawks capped off the season with a dominant win over UW-Eau Claire and a 48-7 victory. It's no exaggeration to say that the season was a little disappointing compared to what the fans may have expected, including myself. So, overall, what can be taken away from this season, and what are some things fans can look forward to for the seasons ahead?
If there's one thing that can be taken from this year, right, I think it's that our quarterback recruiting department is kind of suspect, right? Our quarterbacks combined this year had 11 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, a terrible touchdown to interception ratio with a 55% completion percentage, right? It's not very good. If you have a good quarterback, you can unlock a running back. Like we had Tamir Thomas, the graduate rookie. Graduate senior, 456 yards, 5 touchdowns on the year. He had a great year. We had Ty Schultz, 2 touchdowns, 353 yards. We had 2 very good running backs. We had decent receivers. We had a great defense. We just didn't have the quarterbacks to lead the team as far as we needed to go.
Yeah, I do agree. And we could keep on being a dead horse in terms of the quarterback play. All you can hope at this point is that they go into the offseason remembering what happened this season and just using that as fuel rather to boost themselves rather than bring themselves down, and that they can just work with the coach to continue to improve on what we saw this season. There were a few good games, like for our last game, it's a little bit too little too late, but they didn't throw a single interception that game. And that does seem like a low bar. But that's I think the only time this season they did that. So that's a good way to go out on the season, just to show that we can still win. All we gotta do is take that momentum and build upon it for the next year. Anyways, though, at number 4 on our list, the NCAA basketball season is back. All the teams are making their grand returns to the courts, from the Bulldogs to the Wildcats and every blue blood in between. Though March and the madness it brings are a ways away, what are some teams you think could make a push to either win a title or even just make the tournament?
You know what I mean? Like, when I go to bed and I pray every night and I pray to God, right, I look up to him and I ask him, can you please bring the Wisconsin Badgers a national championship? Has he ever done that? No, but I really do hope that this can be our year. Speaking in a more realistic sense, right, Kentucky looked really dominant in their win against Duke, and I like their recruiting class a lot. I actually like Duke's players too. Con Knuppel, he's from Wisconsin, shout out Con, and Cooper Flag, capture the flag, and everything like that. I think it's going to be a good year in college basketball.
Yeah, this is my first year really paying attention to college basketball, or really college sports for the most part. For the most part, I just watch the pros. But the team that I've been deciding to follow, I didn't want to pick a super, super overpowered team, one of the big powerhouses. So my team, the Scarlet Knights, I'm hoping that we can make at least the playoffs and even make a push this year. So far, we're 3-0, so I'm happy with how we're going. We still got another 3 games before we play any top-ranked teams. So hopefully we can be 6-0 by that time, and then we got Alabama. But I'm looking forward to that team in particular. I am looking out for the obvious teams, the Kansases, the UConns, the Gonzagas. Those teams, obviously, the Dukes, like you said, with Con. But overall, I'm just hoping that my team can do all right. Obviously, you're looking at Cooper Flag and all those other guys, but go Scarlet Knights, and we'll wait to see what happens in this season. At number 3 on our list, the NBA is wrapping up its first month of action. By now, it's getting easier to see what teams are for real and which teams are in trouble. With what we've seen so far, who are some teams that have surprised you for the better or for the worse?
I'm not going to say that this team surprised me because I actually made this prediction, but the Orlando Magic have been looking very nice, right? Paolo went down with the injury, and a lot of people would assume that in this very bad Eastern Conference, the Magic continue to slide, right? But the Magic have stayed solid as a 3rd seed under the Cleveland Cavaliers and Boston Celtics, and that's primarily due to Franz Wagner stepping up in that role. He's playing great, right? I think the Magic are about one piece away from being a real contender to go far in the Eastern Conference. A team that surprised me for the worst is, I hate to say it, but the Milwaukee Bucks, right? We knew that they were old. We knew that they had Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham. We knew that it was bad. We knew that it was going to be over soon. We just didn't know that it was going to be this bad and over this soon, right? We had a nice win against the Rockets last night, but at the end of the day, the Bucks' problems are deep, right? They bleed deep. You can't really fire the coach. We've been through 3 coaches, right? And at the end of the day, our roster construction is really bad. You know what I mean? We knew this, but they have been overplaying the last few years. It's catching up to us, and, you know, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, as a lifelong Bucks fan, this season has been depressing, to say the absolute least. I mean, this is giving me flashbacks to the baby Giannis days where we only got 13 wins in the season. We were one of the worst teams of all time, if I remember correctly. All those type of days, man, that's not what I like to see. And there's one main glaring issue that I see on this team, or rather, a lack of something that I'm not seeing. Thanasis Antetokounmpo needs to come back and save the Bucks. Giannis can't do it without you. Anyways, though, we've got more coming up on the list, including Badger football and the end of an NFL win streak. We'll be right back here on the list.
Have you heard of UROC?
We're part of Whitewater and our own thing.
Come on, we'll show you.
I learned how to be a college student here, and now I'm headed off to Madison to study global health, and I know I'm ready.
People like me who aren't a fan of big crowds would really like UROC because it's welcoming and it's laid back.
My advisor helped me figure out my schedule, organize my time, fill out my FAFSA, and figure out what classes I liked and how to turn that into a major. And if I had to do it again, I would choose UROC.
You ready to rock?
You belong here.
For Hawk Talk, especially on days I'm hosting, you really need to be up early looking at those news stories, even the night before. I'm finding topics that I can incorporate in the show, and I feel like we get a conversation going.
Once you get the opportunity to do that with other people who appreciate it the same level as you do, it makes it that much more enjoyable.
For everything sports, tune in Monday through Thursday at 91.7 The Edge or watch us on UWW TV.
Your home for excellence in action. The WIAC Network. Watch and download here.
It's always been there, his love of the outdoors. Some days, you wonder if it might be his calling. Truth is, you know that the things he's passionate about today will build the foundation of what he does tomorrow, and possibly inspire a new journey. All he needs now is a way to make it happen. We are the Universities of Wisconsin. 13 universities. Unlimited opportunity.
Welcome back to the list on UWW-TV. Let's continue the countdown to this week's top sports stories. At number 2 on our list, the Wisconsin Badgers football team suffered a tough loss to number 1 ranked Oregon on Saturday. The Badgers only lost by 3 after a sequence of strange plays by both of the teams. The only other team to play Oregon this close was 12th ranked Boise State. With the season essentially over at 5-5, what can be taken away from a close game against a highly ranked opponent?
You know what I mean? I think if there's one thing that can be taken away, right, and I hate to be hypercritical of this position, but it's a fact, right? Braden Locke and the Badgers quarterbacks in general are not very good, right? Phil Longo took the fall. You know what I mean? But Phil Longo is an air raid offensive coordinator, and the Badgers never gave him a quarterback that can run his system, right? The offense being bad is because you keep giving them Braden Locke, right? Tanner Mordecai went down, we had Braden Locke. This year our quarterback goes down, we have Braden Locke again. Braden Locke is one of the big gripes in the Badgers offense, right? And if you can't score, you can't beat teams, right? We were in this game all game, and he throws an interception like he always does. Terrible completion percentage, everything, you know what I mean? It was a lucky interception that was tipped by the defensive lineman, but it's a Braden Locke type of play.
Yeah, I mean, and on that same note of all these weird plays, Oregon themselves did have a weird play. I'm not sure what that little fake field goal thing was and why they had the nerve to go out there and do that. That seems like somebody was watching too many Dan Campbell type games, and they're just like, let me just go out there and do something because I think we're just better than them. And that's kind of a slap in the face, especially considering the fact that they did win. That tipped interception at the end was entirely heartbreaking for anybody who is a Wisconsin fan. I mean, this season is pretty much over for Wisconsin, but I mean, this game was, I guess, cool, but it is what it is. Finally, at our number 1 spot of this week, the Kansas City Chiefs are no longer undefeated. Finally, thank the heavens. The Buffalo Bills beat the Chiefs 30-21 on Sunday, putting an end to the notion of a perfect season. With this loss, are the Chiefs still favorites to three-peat, or does this loss show that they're weaker than people believed?
You know, in my opinion, I think the Chiefs' biggest problems this year have been on the offensive side of the ball, and it's not because of their injuries. It's because of Patrick Mahomes, right? Patrick Mahomes does not look very Mahomey, as they like to say, and Travis Kelce has looked like Taylor Swift sucked the skill out of him, right? When you have your two best offensive players lose their skills like this, you know what I mean? It's hard to win games, and that's been showing for the Chiefs all year, and they were 9-0 in spite of that. But if Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce can't lock in, it's going to be a tough season. I will say this, though. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are kind of known for locking in when it matters the most, right? And there's one thing that we do know is that the Chiefs are probably going to make the playoffs, and they always turn it up and flip it, the switch during the playoffs. They play better in the playoffs, right? So do I believe that they are a weaker team than people believed? I think if you don't watch the games, you looked at the 9-0, that's true. But if you watch every game, you know that they were kind of weak. And if you know the Chiefs, you know that they'll probably turn it up later in the year.
You know, I have to agree for the most part, but I think I have insider information that will explain why they lost this game. You see, every single game, there's a guy who comes in the locker room and they do a sacrificial lamb ceremony to make sure that the football gods make everything that go their way. It turns out the farm that usually supplies the lambs was shut down for the day. So they had to go out there and play real football against a real team, and they finally lost. And no more Mahomes magic, but they're probably going to three-peat anyways. And that'll do it for this edition of The List. We'll be back next week to talk up the latest sports headlines. For Nadiri Morgan-Thompson and the members of the UWW-TV crew, I'm Mason Miller. See you then.